Welcome to another Decrypting Crypto video. My name is Wasim, and today we're going to look at the world's largest Ponzi scheme. Now, what if I asked you, would you be able to sleep at night knowing that our current monetary system is actually a Ponzi scheme? How would you feel about that? So let's take a deep dive into this and understand why this accusation may or may not be true. We want to take a look back at a guy called Brennan Matford. He was a Wall Street scammer, and he ran the largest Ponzi scheme in the history of mankind. When he was caught and asked by the press, he said, "Why are you even talking to me? The federal government is running the biggest Ponzi scheme in the world." So one poses the question, why would he say that? And what would make him believe such a thing and make an accusation? The only logical thing that could come to my mind was that game recognizes game. And he's an expert in Ponzi schemes and scamming people. And he just accused the world's largest government and the leader of the free world of running a Ponzi scheme. So let's take a deeper dive to understand this allegation and look at what is fiat money and what is Ponzi schemes. And then we can come to a conclusion as to whether the current financial system or the current monetary system that we live in is a Ponzi scheme or not. So first of all, what is fiat currency or fiat money? As discussed in some of our previous videos and some of our previous live streams, when we spoke about the IMF and the fractional banking system, fiat money is simply a government-issued currency that is not backed by any physical commodity, such as gold or silver. So back in 1971, Richard Nixon removed the convertibility of the US dollar to gold. This was because prior to that, every US dollar had to be backed by physical gold. But the world saw that the US government was printing so much money, and then they were concerned that they may not have enough gold to back it. So they started asking to convert their US dollars to gold. So Richard Nixon went on national TV and temporarily removed the convertibility of the US dollar from gold. So what we know now is that the US dollar is not backed by anything, it is not pegged to anything. So why does it have value? The reason why the dollar has value is because of faith and trust in the issuing body. The value is dictated by the government. It is derived from the assurance and stability as well as the relationship between supply and demand. Therefore, fiat money or fiat currency is not backed by any physical reserves. It has a risk of losing its value to inflation or even becoming totally worthless in the event of hyperinflation, as we've seen happen over and over in history with many fiat currencies, whether it was back in Germany, whether it's in Lebanon, in Greece, Venezuela, Sri Lanka, Turkey. So many instances in the past, and history has shown that fiat currency always collapses. So let's understand how fiat money works and its function. So first of all, money is minted by the government and used to facilitate various transactions. And everyone has to accept it by decree. See, the word fiat comes from the Latin word by decree or by force. So everyone has to accept it as the widely accepted monetary system for that country, which most of the world runs on today. You can use your money to determine the monetary value of goods and services and other transactions. You can also use it to save wealth in storing its value and eventually passing on your wealth. But dollars of the past and the present have been devalued and are on a constant decline. We've spoken about this over and over again in a lot of our presentations, showing how much the dollar has been devalued. And also what we know is there's been so much money printing of late that the dollar has been devalued even more, and hence why the world is going through so much inflation right now. So economists also consider an additional function, namely as a standard for deferred payments. So that means in this case, you can use money to value debt. This is the direct function as a result of the store of value and the unit of account functions of money. So let's look how the US dollar or money is distributed. So how does the government print money and distribute it into the economy? The government has what they call, which is the corporate welfare programs. This is printing money and giving it to the top 1%. It's a program in which the government hands out money through grants, tax breaks, and other special favorable treatments towards corporation and the top 1% of the world's financial system. This is basically a loan-based asset hoarding pyramid scheme with extra steps. So the government prints money and they gives this money, lends this money to the top corporations and the top 1%. Now, these top corporations of 1% then pay an interest to the government. Now, what they do is then create more debt and give it to mid-tier banks and smaller businesses, who also then pay interest to the higher tier banks and the top tier banks and the top corporations. Now, these mid-tier banks and small businesses then again create more debt and then hand it over to the average layman, to the average person like you and I, who then pays interest on this. So the whole system is just taking money from the top, taking money from the bottom and paying those at the top. So the same way as the Ponzi scheme, if we look at the dictionary, definition of Ponzi schemes, we understand that a Ponzi scheme is taking money from the later investors and giving it to the early investors, which is exactly how the current monetary system works. So in other words, it is a corrupt system that creates more and more debt. On the investors' end, the government pays off the debt to old national bond investors with the money that they receive from new national bond investors as they are investing into government bond markets, because people believe that government bonds are the safest place to put their money, because governments always pay their debt. However, we've seen this over and over again. When governments cannot pay their debt, what they end up doing is just printing more and more money to pay off debt, which then devalues the money and is a classic Ponzi scheme. So if you don't know what a Ponzi scheme is, now you understand that it is taking money from the later investors and giving it to the early investors. And that collapses when there's no more new money coming in, then there's no money to be paid out to investors. And this is how the whole system collapses. And this is what we're seeing with the current fiat system all around the world. The US government prints money, lends this money out to other people who then pay the government an interest, then they lend it out and they get interest, and it goes on and on and on. And there's no real backing other than debt. This is why what we see in the world right now is that every nation in the world is in debt, and they value the country's valuation comes around how much debt they have. So as more and more people pay off their debt, that goes up that chain to the earlier investors, more and more debt is created for the middle class and the poor people. And therefore, this is why we're seeing a huge divide between the rich and the middle class and the poor. And we're actually seeing more and more of the poor sliding down below the poverty line. Now, what we saw in the last couple of years, especially during 2020, during the pandemic, we saw that governments printed money at no end. In fact, we've shown over and over again that almost 45% of the US dollars in circulation right now was printed in 2020. It is because of this government policy and money printing policy that we are seeing today inflation all around the world. We're seeing countries like Europe really, really struggling with inflation, such as the UK with over 10 and 11% inflation. We're seeing countries like Lebanon with over 200% inflation, countries like Turkey with about 178% inflation, countries like Venezuela with about 158% inflation. We're seeing countries like Sri Lanka going bankrupt. It's because the whole system, the more that the US dollar becomes stronger, the more it devalues other currencies around the world, and the more the rest of the world suffers because of the strength of the US dollar. Now, when you take all of this into consideration, this is what gives Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies its value, and the reason why so many people are moving towards Bitcoin and moving towards cryptocurrency. Bitcoin is the only truly 100% decentralized money in the world. It is the only money, it's the strongest form and hardest form of money to date that humans have ever created. It is backed by code, it is backed by energy, it is backed by proof of work. And when you understand this, that the Bitcoin monetary policy cannot be changed, because once you change any of its code, you create a new chain and it's no longer Bitcoin. You understand why Bitcoin is so safe and why so many people are moving their assets away from fiat currencies into Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. I hope this video has explained to you what the fiat system currency, what the fiat monetary system is, and why it is the world's largest Ponzi scheme, and why we are seeing so much inflation and so many people losing money and moving and sliding down towards the poverty line more and more across the world. That's it from me. Thank you for watching today's Decrypting Crypto video, and I hope to see you next time.